Hi guys, and welcome to this episode of the Comedy Defect Podcast. Hooray! My name is Winter Phonander, and this is my show. Welcome to episode 39 with Martin Huburn. Now, Martin is a really good friend of mine. I met him at the Fringe a few years ago, where he had to cut it short, which you'll hear about in this pod. And Martin's name, Martin Huburn, I butchered it completely when I was interviewing him live, and I had to do it about 4 times. So you might hear that. You might have thought it was the second time, but no, it was 4 times. Got his name wrong 4 times, guys. Yeah, it happens, okay? Martin Huburn is his name for episode 39. Very funny guy. He's got a show at the moment which he's touring called Tip Tonight, and he's going to probably take that to the Edinburgh Fringe this year. He's also writing a book about his past job before he started comedy. We'll talk about that in this show as well. And that book is called Poison, an Infectious Adventure. What has been happening with me, though? Well, I tell you, I've started up karate again, and I've started injuring my body. Nearly broke my toe, sore ribs, and got an elbow to the mouth today. It was great. It was great. I was lucky. It kept all my teeth. Happy about that. Very happy about that. Follow this podcast on Twitter. We're there at The Comedy Defect. You can follow me at Winter Phonander. Now, I've got a preview for my show called Tolerance, which I'm previewing around the country. You can see the dates for those previews, times, locations on my website, which is winterphonander.com. And a friend of mine, you might have heard him on the podcast, Danny Clives, is doing my website as we speak. I can't wait to see what he's going to do with my new website, and then you'll see it, all the dates, all the previews, all the gigs up there on that brand new website. Way! You can also find the jokes, which I gleaned from the Guinness Encyclopedia, there on Twitter, and the headline for that is The Book Dad Read, and the handle for that is at Guinness Jokes. All the jokes are there. Go read them, go share them, go like them, retweet them. Hey, why not? You can also support this podcast. You can go to Patreon, type in The Comedy Defect Podcast, and you can donate a monthly donation as little as £1 or as much as you want, as whatever you feel this podcast is worth. And guys, look, those of you that do donate, thank you very much. You're paying for the people that can't. And those of you that can't donate, do you know what? Just share your favourite episode. Like it, share it, tell your friends about it, because it tells people where we are and what we are doing. And thanks for listening, guys. I really appreciate some of the comments, some of the shout-outs I've gotten for each episode. It's much appreciated. That's all I'm going to say for the intro for this podcast. It is the very funny, very likeable West Midland comedian, Mr. Martin Huburn. Enjoy. Martin Huburn.
Right, this is
Huburn.
Right, I'm going to get to this. Right,
Yeah.
You get introduced to the stage by an MC, and they haven't done their research, and it's welcome to the stage, Martin Huburn, and it's like no, the accent's on the U. Come on, you should know this
Huburn.
as well.
Martin
Huburn.
Yeah, right,
you wouldn't go up to someone called Mr. Hughes and call him Mr. Hughes, would you?
That's it.
You wouldn't do it.
I know. No, Martin Huburn, welcome to the Comedy Defect.
Hello.
Man. Thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate you meeting me here in this car park, which we are making the best of. No one's going to stop us yet. We'll see what happens, you know. Do you meet here regularly?
Yeah, usually flash the lights. Good to go.
Nice.
Welcome to the Midlands.
Great. Well, thanks. It's a pleasure to be back.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah.
We're not too far from Cannock Chase, so after this, we can do some real light flashing.
Oh, great. Light flashing. Okay, cool. Not, apart from heavy flashing. It's not like heavy petting and
It's
soft
like
petting.
heavy petting and soft flashing.
Okay.
And that's...
Yeah. So how have you been, man? I haven't seen you in a while, man.
I know, yeah.
You just show the... What was it called again, that
Tip
show?
Tonight.
Tip
Tip
Tonight.
Tonight was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A lot of fun. I'm hoping to continue with that lot of fun again this year. So, yeah.
Did you tour that at the Fringe, or...?
Not last year. I'm planning on to... doing the Fringe this year. I've put my application in. I'm just waiting on people to go, yeah, we want your show. So that's where I'm at.
Where did you tour it? Did you just preview all the places?
Yeah, I'd done was 9 previews in the end, which were full 40-minute previews. And I started up the road at Wolverhampton at the Lighthouse, and I had 25 people in. And it was just weird, though. They weren't laughers at all. And then I'd done...
Awesome. Thanks for
yeah,
coming, guys.
there we go.
You're like 25 people. That's pretty good for a show. You know, just for a preview.
I was so excited because I'm outside and there's like a little cobbled area at the Lighthouse, and the actual show was in the cafe area, and it probably holds about 35 to 40 tops. And I saw like 25 people, and I'm like, I'm absolutely buzzing. They've gone with the first couple of lines, first couple of jokes. The person laughing the hardest was an 85-year-old woman. And she come up to me at the end of the show. She says, I really enjoyed your show, but I wish you'd done more than 5 minutes of material about Tipton. and then put £5 in my bucket. So if I'd have done 40 minutes of Tipton material, I'd have been rich.
Yeah, she's £1 a minute, man. That's
Exactly.
fucking amazing. That's like 45 quid. That's not bad at
I know,
all. Man.
but she was out of probably about 4 people, one of only 4 people laughing out of a whole room of 25. It was just awkward.
What was it? Were they students or what? What kind of
No,
demographic?
the demographic, believe it or not, were probably over 50. Maybe out of the 25, maybe 3 people of my age bracket, between 30 to 40 age bracket. And everyone else was over 50. It was weird, and it was like, I hope this isn't kind of like a running trend. I run it out at Birmingham for Birmingham Comedy Festival, and I had 7 in. They were laughers, and they were my age demographic. But then, the more I took it, you could see that the show was actually encouraging more older, mature people. It was kind of nice. Nottingham Comedy Festival was surreal. That was a broad mix. But again, the majority of the people there were over 50. And it was kind of weird because that's not my normal demographic. Evidently, that's the type of people that want to see a show about somebody from the West Midlands.
Yeah. What? I don't understand that. I don't understand that kind of like
Let
to
me
see a show that you don't like.
The first one was the awkward one.
Okay.
Everything else seemed to kind of fall into place.
Right.
But yeah, it was just that one. I think they just got dragged in by somebody and was like, oh, there's going to be a comedy night and just come and support kind of thing. And a lot of my material is aimed to those between 30 and 40. There's quite a lot of, I guess, let's say cliches from the 80s, you know. So it's more aimed at people in our age group. There's a lot of cultural references of then. A lot of the old people just didn't quite get it, but for some strange reason they were attracted to this flyer that I'd put together, and obviously the name of the show, and thought, oh, this would be good. No, it's not for you.
Surprise!
The weirdest...
That's the first one, isn't it? That's the first preview, right?
Yeah,
it's going to be a
that
little
was the
bit
first
ropey, and it's going to be difficult to kind of get the rhythm and the pace down and stuff for it. When was the next preview after that?
The next preview was Birmingham Comedy Festival.
And how many days following that was it? Did you kind of like roll it out again?
It was within a couple of weeks.
Whoa.
It was within a couple of weeks.
A lot of stressful fretting before.
But I enjoy it. I really enjoyed it because I'd done a lot of tours with the wrestling because I used to be a professional wrestler. So tours is like, it's second nature to me. Right. I just kind of fall into stuff. Yeah. So I enjoy the promotion. I enjoy the performance aspect of it, because you never know what you're going to get. Everything's different. And like I said, with Birmingham, it was a smaller audience, but it was more intimate. It was nice. People were on board with what I was doing, and it was 100 times better. I'll take that 7 people over 25 every day, as long as that 7 people are laughers.
Yeah. I used to be a professional wrestler.
Used to be a professional
Amazing,
wrestler.
Right? So, like, how come you weren't more shouty then? Oh, welcome to the show! Whoa, my name is Martin Huburn!
I'll leave the
Huburn.
shouting to you.
Huburn.
Yeah, Huburn.
Yeah, sorry,
come on, put the accent back on you.
Huburn!
Now, when I first started, I was quite ranty and quite shouty, and I'd done a gig in Birmingham at a place called the Slug and Lettuce, and I'd done this 10-minute structured rant. By the time I'd got to the crescendo, right in the middle at about 6 or 7 minutes, you could see people on the front row absolutely terrified.
Totally.
And I was like, no, this isn't my kind of humour. I mean, it is, but I can see that I can't convey it. They're not wanting a wrestler to stand up on stage and go, and it just...
Totally. Totally.
So
Are you
I started
ready?
reining it in a little bit.
Yeah, fair. Are you ready? Not really ready at all for this. No, totally terrified now. Did you have a good night? I think so. I changed my knickers twice. Well, I thought I was wearing boxer shorts when I came out, but now apparently I'm wearing knickers. What was your name? Did you have a...
It was Poison. Yeah, I was wrestling for best part of 15 years.
Wow.
In fact, actually, I'm in the process of writing my wrestling autobiography. There's lots of little bits that are quite fresh. I moved over to the US when I was 22, so I went and spent the best part of 6 years stateside as well. So I was wrestling over there with a lot of the names from years gone by, and it was just a fantastic experience.
Go on, drop a few of those bad boys. Go on.
New Jack, if any of your listeners are into like ECW, so New Jack, Roadkill, Easy Money, Kid Cash. I mean, the list goes on and on. C.W. Anderson from the old NWA Mid-Atlantic and WCW era. There was Lodi, there was Colonel Robert Parker, there was Sherry Martel. There was, I mean, literally the list does go on and on. From the old glory days of the WWE, which was the WWF. There was Warlord, Barbarian, again, Sherry Martel. There was a lot of crossover there.
What was your pre-match routine? Do you have like a ritual or something? I guess I'm saying routine, but like, was there a ritual? Because some of this stuff you could get really seriously injured, couldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a full contact entertainment. So there's a lot of choreography that goes into it. We all know that. And there's a lot of wrestlers that will probably really slate me for saying these things live. And the thing is, it is entertainment. Vince McMahon killed that preconception many, many years ago. It's a full contact entertainment. There's choreography. Unfortunately, as you know, with choreography, at a live event, these things can go desperately, horribly wrong, and so very often because the amount of amount of adrenaline and testosterone that's going on, these things frequently go wrong. The risk real. When it comes to preparation, it all depends on the venue. If you're at an armoury, because we used to do a lot of wrestling shows at the...
Bases sort of thing.
Yeah, not quite an army base, but like an army barracks. Yeah. With most of the army barracks, they had a gym, so I'd go and I'd probably do an hour's worth of iron, and then... start working through my match with whoever I was wrestling at the time. With high schools, you don't usually get access to the gym, so it's usually play cards or play solitaire or, you'll have video games, you'll listen to music, you put your earphones in, you kind of get into the zone, you get into the show zone.
Yeah.
So, it really depends on the venue and where your head's at that moment in time, so...
What was the tune you had?
Poison Alice Cooper.
Cool. And like your uniform. I've seen a picture of it.
Yeah, again, it depends what had come out of the wash first. I had one that was black and green. I had one that's purple and green, one that's blue and white, one that's black and white. I've had an all purple. I've had an all red. So it depends what had come out in the wash. Yeah. If I was wrestling 3 or 4 days a week, I'd have one for, So it all depends. Yeah. Which had come out of the bag first, and I'd go, okay, that'll
cool.
And
do. When it went into the ring and stuff, with all that much adrenaline, man, like there's that slight, when you're messing about with your mates and that, there's always that one twist too far that you go, no, this isn't playing anymore. This is serious. This shit has just got real now, isn't it? And that stuff happens.
And it does happen. It happens less frequently when you're working with people, But when you get somebody that you don't know or you haven't wrestled with before, unfortunately, that's when the mistakes start happening. And then, unfortunately, because you don't know one another, there is a level of animosity, and you've got this. It can start getting very awkward very quickly, and unfortunately, these things happen more often than not with me. I was wrestling someone I didn't know.
Yeah, and you're like kind of like, hit me with that chair, no problem.
Twice.
You hit me with 2, and a table. Okay, we're improving this shit. Okay, great.
In fact, in Virginia is what's known as a no-blood state. Right. In Virginia, you used to have an actual licence to wrestle. You'd have to go to the Commonwealth state, and you'd get the Wrestling and Boxing Commission to sign off. So every year, you'd have to go for a medical, and you weren't allowed to bleed in the shows in Virginia, not whatsoever. And there was one guy I was wrestling. He just stunk. I mean, he never washed his gear. He was just a proper redneck. Like, I mean, Deliverance. He's next level. And I used to do this move where I'd tie him up in the Tree of Woe, which is upside down in the corner, so their legs would be crossed on the top rope. And then I'd put the chair in front of them and then hit the turnbuckle behind me and then drop kick the chair. Well, I picked up the most jaggedest of chairs. I mean, you could see that it'd been used a few times. And, I mean, it lacerated him.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they stopped the match instantly, and they were like, blah, blah. And I really got worried that we're going to take my licence off me. And most of my wrestling back in the first couple of years of the States was in Virginia. Right. So I made a lot of money in Virginia, and I was like, that might not have been a good move.
Yeah, man. Wow.
But I got away with it.
The money back then, though. I mean, I remember is this in the 80s?
No,
the 90s?
No, early thousands. Early noughties, sorry.
Right, okay, cool.
Got to sound all hip.
Yeah. Well, you toured all around, like, just Virginia, really, was it mostly? Or
I lived in North Carolina, so I'd do a lot of shows in North Carolina. Virginia, there was There's a lot of wrestling shows in Virginia, like independent organisations. If you can wrestle, I mean, if you've actually got a talent, you'll never be out of work, especially in Virginia, especially in Tennessee, because there's that many different wrestling organisations all set up. One will see you and they're like, oh, come and wrestle for me this Friday and Saturday, and then the next one will go, oh, can you come and wrestle for me next Friday and Saturday? So you'd constantly back home, back out, back home, back out. So it was a constant kind of rotation, really.
You must have got injured as well a few times.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what was the worst injury you had?
I've had 2 concussions that were pretty bad. The worst injury, I was in the process of trying out for TNA. It was NWA TNA then. Just before my tryouts, I was wrestling a guy called Robert Roma. And one of the moves I used to have is I'd hold both the legs, so they'd be on the back. So I've got both of the legs in my hands. And I'd throw the one leg to the side and I'd do a massive elbow drop over the top of one of the legs. Now, the technique to actually taking it is, as the guy's coming down, you bend at the knee, so it looks like it's... Well, he didn't. He kept his legs straight. So as I've come down, his legs still bolt upright, and I've popped out 2 of my ribs from my sternum. So that didn't break. The cartilage was that soft that 2 of the ribs popped out. So I could see this lump protruding out of my chest, and I was like... That's not supposed to be like that. But the thing is it wings you as well. I mean, it's the pain is 10 times worse than a broken rib. And I ended up having to pop it back in the middle of a match, and I'm literally gasping for air. But because it's right before tryouts, I'm having to suck it up, and we're still having to wrestle the match. 6 weeks it took for that injury to recover.
Oh, man.
It was horrible.
Every time you breathe, you can feel that as well. Any damage to the ribs are, like, horrible, isn't it? It's like, oh, you wake up in the morning, oh, I'm awake now. Definitely awake.
And the worst thing is with that is you can't lift weights at all. Because every time you lift weights, it pops.
Yeah, of course.
It was horrible. I after about 3 or 4 weeks, I went and tried back down in the gym. I was doing shoulder work, so I was doing military presses, and I really started to start pushing. My rib went, no, you can't put that weight on it. It was horrible.
I love the thread throughout you had a couple of names you dropped there earlier on about, like, the Barbarian and, like, the move, the Tree of Woe. All of them massive references to the Conan the Barbarian, the film.
Right.
And it's like when Thulsa Doom says, put him on the Tree of Woe. And he's like, with Arnie and that. You've seen that film? Yeah, it's one of my favourite films. That is one of my favourites. Steroids must have been massive back then, was it?
Was it? Can I say this? I'll be honest. Around the local independent circuit, not so much. But the more you start climbing the ladder, the more common it comes, and the closer you get to the top, the more people are using it.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm not going to point fingers in regards to
anyone.
Who's using and who's doing what, because everyone usually keeps that quiet. But yeah, the closer you get to the top, the more people
more pressure
are using
that, is it?
Exactly.
So come on, you need to stay in top physical condition. You can't do
exactly.
it alone.
And the thing is, if you look at other sports, football is 9 months a year. American football, I think that's like 5 months a year. Wrestling is still the only thing that goes all the way around the clock. It's 365 days a year. Yeah. And most of the touring wrestlers are on the road for at least a good portion of that. So 2/3 to maybe 3/4 of 365 days on the road, constantly flying, constantly travelling, constantly having to look after the body, constantly putting all that brute force and ignorance on the body. They've got to do something to look after it. I understand why steroids are so readily available and so many wrestlers towards the top end use as many performance-enhancing drugs as possible.
Yeah, I mean, the body just isn't meant to take that much punishment, is it, really?
No, not at all. I mean, if you look at how many wrestlers die young, and when they do the coronary reports and the tox reports, most of them have got high-level painkillers in, because you've got to get from place to place, you've got to get from day to day. Steroid abuse, narcotics such as cocaine and amphetamines, it's all there, and it's literally to keep wrestlers going 365 days a year because they don't take time off.
Did you have a following when you were like...
In Tennessee, I had a great following. I used to be a villain or a heel, as they're called in wrestling. The thing is, in Tennessee, I could not get over as a heel. Every time I'd go over as a heel, they'd pop for me anyway.
Right.
So all of a sudden, you're making the audience turn heel with you. So a lot of the independents in the Tennessee territory would book me as a babyface. A place called Johnson City, which is on east side of Tennessee. I had a very, very good following, very strong following. I was put in a lot of very, very strong feuds because I was quite a scientific wrestler. I'd done a lot of high flying. So that kind of brand of wrestling was slightly different to the slightly slapstick element that you get in Tennessee. And they saw a more serious, more cutting-edge style of the stars that were in Tennessee. Because in Tennessee at the time, you had Easy Money was quite a big name in East Tennessee. You had Kid Cash, you had Chris Hamrick. These were guys that really could wrestle. They weren't just your ham and eggers. They weren't there punch, kick, punch, kick, punch, kick, throw a clothesline. Yeah. There was an art to wrestling. And if you had a certain art to wrestling about you, they loved you in East Tennessee. So because I portrayed that and I had the accent and I had this cheekiness and this little bit of a swagger about me, it develops a following. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
But, did you have a mailing list back then?
I didn't need one, if I'm honest. I really should have plugged into that.
If only you started the mailing list then. I know. Go, hey, look, it's Poison. I'm doing comedy now, guys. Look, I've got all this thing. Look, I won't do it in the uniform, but like I'll do it in that's fine. But I mean that makes everyone feel pretty awkward anyway. Staring them out.
This is the thing is I've tried to re-establish a lot of my old contacts from because I wrestled here for 9 of the 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to re-establish a lot of contacts, but it's as if the wrestling world has kind of forgot who I ever was. Yeah. And it's kind of horrible because I was a bigger name in the US than I was here. I was kind of, I guess I was the AC/DC or the Def Leppard of wrestling.
Yeah.
I was actually bigger. Not in my own hometown. Wow. It's kind of sucks to be me, to be fair.
It's just, guys, I'm back. Do you remember? Oh, okay, everything's moved on now.
That's it, exactly.
Hey, man, you've a neck. That's not right. Wrestlers don't have necks. No, but it was different. It was different back then. We weren't all. Oh, fuck it, never mind. But it's like, So you're writing your biography. Then,
yeah, I'm writing my autobiography.
What are you calling it?
It's called Poison: An Infectious Adventure of a Professional Wrestler. And it's pretty much looking at my life story from, every kid should have a dream. I don't care what it is, and aspire to follow that dream. And I grew up not knowing really what I wanted to do. I was quite good at my academics, which I know it's hard to believe now, but I was like really good at maths and English and core subjects. I mean, I passed my 11 plus. I decided not to go to grammar school because none of my friends had passed the 11 plus, and it was like, I don't want to do that for. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do. In fact, like most kids that grew up during the 80s, I had a massive obsession with BA and the A team. So teachers thought I was either going to be A, an engineer, or B, a terrorist. They weren't too sure which way it was going to go. Yeah. And I guess they got it both wrong. Then I moved into secondary school, and I had the passion of football and American football, and I started getting more into sports and practical stuff. And I was like, I don't know what I want to do. And then football kind of became a major passion, but I was never good enough. I was a really good goalkeeper, but my height stunned at 5'9" when I was about 15. So I didn't really get into that 6 foot range to become a professional goalkeeper. And I was kind of like, I don't know what I want to do. And then a friend of mine introduced me to a WWF pay-per-view. And I was like, I know somebody that goes to a wrestling school. And I was like, let's see if we can kind of find a way of chasing this dream. And then it kind of become a thing. Wrestling actually become a thing. It was towards the back end of the downfall of the British era. American wrestling started really taking off big. All the wrestlers that were over here were still transitioning from the old British style rounds, the boring wrestling. I don't want to say this, it's going to offend any wrestlers that listen and go, it's boring. From a 15-year-old that's just saw drop kicks galore and all this glitz, the glamour, the hype, the hyperbole of professional American wrestling. the British wrestling thing does not look appealing anymore. It isn't until you actually start becoming a real fan of wrestling that you understand and appreciate British wrestling and the art that went into that. This whole attraction of American wrestling, it was like, and that there really wasn't many British wrestlers doing that American style yet. I was in that first swath of wrestlers, British wrestlers that were doing the American style rather than just, shunning the British stuff. Yeah. And you had all the old British wrestlers going, no, it's this way. And we're like, nah, this is what's making the money. Yeah. So, unfortunately, then that all started to dwindle out until sort of Ring of Honor happened in America, which is, it's more pure wrestling. It's old school wrestling with a new school format. And as soon as that started breaking out in America, again, everywhere else went, no, this is what we should be doing. We should be doing this strong style wrestling, this more pure wrestling. And then you start to get an appreciation for the old world of sports stuff and how that was done and how wrestlers were originally taught to look after themselves.
You were the antagonist to start with until you became the babyface, you said.
Well,
and then you were like, so come on, like, I'm the Poison, give it up for Poison.
Well, when I first started wrestling, I was about 12 stone. So I weren't a massive kid. Like I said, my height stunned at 5'9". So I was about 12 stone, 5'9". And I was kind of gutted though, because like I said, I really wanted to be a goalkeeper. I learnt very quickly to do the scientific style of wrestling. I could fly quite well. Now, when you've got blonde hair and blue eyes in wrestling and you're young and you're not massive, you've only got one area to go, and that's be the good guy. It was Shawn Michaels and Mr. Perfect that really broke the mould of pretty boys playing the villain, the heels. So, when I first started, I was a high-flying babyface. And it weren't until I started progressing and started to develop a bit more of a body, going into the gym and starting putting some weight on and that kind of stuff, that I started really establishing myself as a heel. Yeah, it's towards the back end. Before going to the US, I established myself as a heel. There's an art form to being a heel because you've got to know your job is to interact with the audience and you've got to make them hate you, and you've got to find a hook to make it personal so they hate you personally. You don't want them to just hate your persona, you want them to hate you. And I found good ways of getting my audience to really hate me, and just doing personal little things and just constantly nagging at them and just doing little bits and pieces and finding opportunist moments to just turn the tide of a match. And I had these good techniques, but constantly letting the audience come and see what I was doing.
So when was your first gig? Was it Slug and Lettuce, you said? Or
no, my first gig was at the Hollybush. I remember the date as well. It was March 21st. 2013 was my first gig. I'd been to Amsterdam when I was about 18, and there's this surreal story. I almost got man-raped in Amsterdam. No, seriously.
Whoa.
It was quite dramatic at the time. I was 18, I'd went to Amsterdam on my own. I was a naive teenager. Got myself into a precarious situation in the red light district. Didn't have enough money to buy what he was trying to force me to buy. And he tried to lead me up an alley. Anyway, I told this story. I conjured it up for comedic effect.
Sure.
I told that story for the first time on stage. It got some decent laughs within it. And I was just hooked. I was just like, I can't believe I've done that. I've stood up on stage. There's just me, a light and the audience and this microphone. And I haven't needed to body slam anybody to get a reaction.
That comes later. Liberating.
Yeah, that's exactly the word I was looking for. It was so liberating, and I knew I didn't have to rely on another act coming up here to make me look good, and I didn't need to be up there to make someone else look good. Obviously, you start figuring out when you're at a proper comedy night, you need to make one another look good. So it is a team effort. But when you first look at it from a performance aspect, it's such a naked medium. And I know most of your listeners are going to be comedians, and they understand and they appreciate that. But when...
Sorry, you saying it's a team effort is like, no one has ever said that's like on this show yet, like it's a team effort. I get it with the compare, the opening act, the middle spots need to pull their weight. The MC has to really be on it as well and really do the best.
Let me throw this at you.
Go on.
Okay. You're at a new material night.
Yeah.
Okay. And you've got a TV comic coming in to road test his or her new show. She's, or he is currently writing their show. And then the comic that goes on beforehand does their A game. And that TV name has now got to follow that. Has that comedian then done the right thing according to the show? Or have they done the right thing only by them?
Oh, that's a difficult question. I think that...
This is why I've really started looking at this. If you're at a new material night and you're running out tried and tested just to make yourself look good, you're doing that for self. Now, I don't want to sound big-headed here, and I don't want to sound egotistical, but what I'm trying to say is, it all works together in regards to making one another look good. If you're a middle spot and you're literally just getting your first middle, and you're doing everything to outshine the headliner, the headliner, first of all, should bring their A game. I get that, and I appreciate that. However, if that middle spot is trying to outshine the headliner, when it's the headliner that's bringing bums on seats and paying the paycheck, all of a sudden we've got to start weighing up teamwork on the show, right?
I definitely agree with that idea on a new material night for sure. But on a paid night, which everyone's got to bring their A game, fuck it. Look, I've got to shine as much as I can. Look, it's so hard to get noticed in any way these days. That headliner's got to bring his A game. In fairness, like, I'll maybe retract a bit of that, because I'll say this: you're only competing with yourself, because you're only competing as best as you can be. You're not competing with the other person. They are the best they can be, and I am the best I can be. Most times I can be. We're only human, but it's like that headliner with experience they have should be better than the middle spot anyway. But that's how it shuffles sometimes. And I think that you need to keep pushing that so everyone steps up to the challenge. I mean, I'm sure. Maybe I'm a prick then. Maybe I'm a prick. But okay, in that case, Martin, you got to think. Wait. Listen.
I'm not saying you're wrong.
No, I know it's a debate. It's a really interesting subject. But it's like with that, it's like the MC then, right? The MC should only be okay then, right?
Right. No, I'm not saying that either. As you structure a routine, you usually start with your strong stuff and you finish with your strong stuff and. Everything else goes in the middle. And that's the idea of how a comedy night should be. You've got your opening act. Good. You've got your headliner. Great. Yeah. The middle spot goes in the middle because that's the person that's more easily forgettable. As long as you begin and you end, because that is predominantly what the audience remember. But I think, again, it all comes down to a team effort. As a middle spot, it's your job to make yourself look good, to get credit for it, to gain followers from it, to gain respect from it. Or is your job there to actually make the headliner look good?
You got to bring the best jokes you've got. I don't think you're competing. I've heard a lot of people say, I've got to knock the headliner off his perch sort of thing, just to make sure I get booked. Not necessarily. But you've got to remind whoever booked you that you're funnier than the clip they saw. That's what I feel. You're funnier than the clip that they saw because they booked you. They might have taken a chance. They might have thought, okay, that's an okay clip. Let's book this person and see how they go. And you got to show, I'm funnier than that clip. I'm better than that now. Better than the previous copy of me that you've seen. I don't think you're competing with the headliner, because the headliner doesn't give a shit, because he's already getting paid more than the middle spot anyway. A middle spot might not even get paid.
Absolutely.
So headliner's walking out there with 200 quid, no matter if you did better than him or worse than him, you're just looking to the future and trying to get paid. The headliner's already set wherever they go. They don't need the kudos of winning the night. Because you've seen headliners sometimes really struggle when the previous people have done well. And it happens to everyone. We all get like, oh shit, the previous acts they've absolutely smashed it. And then the headliner's gone up and gone, oh well, I'm going to claim this fucking back and take this to the bank because I am the headliner. and they've swaggered up there with that much confidence that they've totally ruined their act because they've oversold themselves. Why don't you just sit back and sit in that moment of like, I know I'm good at this. You know, you're the headliner. You should be you're getting paid for this, you know? Just relax. You've more likely already got your money. So I think that the headliner should just relax if the open spot's done well. Address it. Fuck, he was good, wasn't he? And then carry on doing your shtick, whatever it is. You know, do you know what I mean? Like, and then go, because you acknowledge you're going, I'm not afraid of that guy. I'm the one that's... Like, you even say it. Oh, he did well, didn't he? He's not getting paid. I'm getting paid. you know what I mean? Fuck it. I'm the one getting paid. So he did all that for nothing.
We've got one side here going for teamwork.
Yeah.
We've got one side here for it's all about self. Make yourself look good at all costs.
Yeah.
And these are the two arguments we got. So we can find out now who is the team player here, guys. Would you rather be on a bill with me? Or
end
would
the
you
podcast.
rather be
That's it. Podcast is over.
On a bill with Winter?
Well,
now who would win in a fight? There's only one way to find out.
Depends on which one is closing. That's it. We can swap around. I see the two sides of that coin, and I definitely think that the gigs that you're talking about, that you will be in the middle you're in the middle because you want to remind them that you're funny to get booked for the whatever spot you're looking for. You know what I mean?
Am I going to hold anything back during that middle spot? Well, if I held anything back, I'd look like a very, very poor open spot, wouldn't I?
Exactly. What's the point of that?
So exactly. So I'm not going to hold anything back, but I'm not going to do anything that's going to jeopardise the headliner. In other words, if let's say their closing joke is X.
Oh, right. Oh, do you mean really fucking
yeah,
shit?
I mean, yeah,
you mean be malicious about this?
I mean,
not do the you kind of see someone that you know who's closing and go, oh, they do a bit about trains, say. Oh, I'll do my bit about trains because it's a killer bit.
Yeah.
You know, and then it'll just dilute the headliner's bit about trains.
There we go.
Now that is malicious. That's malicious, but you know, it depends on how much gear you've got, isn't it? Really, you know, that's it. It depends on how much gear you have to play with, and you go.
Again, it's a team effort. If that is your strongest bit, and let's say it's headliner's middle bit, who gets the right to choose that?
Whoever goes
See,
on
now
first.
this is where
whoever goes on first.
In retrospect, you're absolutely right. In fact, I'm going to mention Dan Mayo. Shout out to Dan. I'll tell you what, that kid has improved so much over the last couple of years. He's got a lovely bit about holiday camps. I've got a lovely bit about holiday camps. Now, the thing is, if he goes on first and does his holiday camp bit, unfortunately, it ruins my bit because one of my little middle innuendo, or not innuendo jokes, but like a little avenue joke, is the name of the holiday camp that he talks about. Now, if he goes on first, they already see my joke coming. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay, however, I can go on and do my bit. And then he can follow on after that and do his bit, and then all of a sudden it's fresh with a word I've mentioned, and he can make it look as if, oh look, I'm just kind of spontaneous coming off that one word of the bit, and this is and it looks so nice. We can't do it the other way around. It's happened, and my joke fell flat, and it's like. Meh. Because he'd been on first.
Man.
But we've both got two lovely bits about holiday parks.
But like, I think that comes from your wrestling background as well. That you want to make every it's a team thing, you know, and you're trying to keep it all flowing and in you know, in sequence and just going well. Because otherwise, I'm not from that. I'm from the outsider sort of school that kind of goes, no, I've fucking always been the outsider. Fuck those guys. They'll never be my friends. You know, so that's where but not that I would deliberately do a joke that someone else has got, because you know, it's when you gig with the people enough, I know what you mean, you go, you know, you do see people when you gig with people a while, they start to pick up bits, maybe not intentionally, but I've seen, like, I don't know, I did a fringe show a while ago, I did a 200 a while back, and this person doesn't do comedy anymore, but I saw them start to mimic one of my bits. And it was really similar. I was like, that's my bit. You're doing my bit. Because it was a good bit. And I was like, okay, fine. But like, come on, can't you see that is nearly a carbon copy of what I'm doing, and it doesn't work. For a start, but I was like, why are you trying to compete with that? Write your own bits. But I know what you're saying. It's one of those things. Yeah, I think that it's a massively debatable subject. But so you did your first gig in Hollywood, right? And I was like, okay, so
I've done the story about Amsterdam.
Okay, and the performance of that.
I've done some really, really kind of horrible hacky jokes about Oscar Pistorius as well. That was quite fresh at the time. And in my opinion, even looking now, I'd actually wrote quite a nice contrived joke about the situation. In fact, I'm going to share it anyway, whether you like to or not.
Yeah.
The joke was Oscar Pistorius shot his girlfriend, and it's kind of harsh. No one expected that, but I can kind of relate to him. Because his girlfriend should never ever have suggested his next challenge be dancing on ice. I love that line. And that was one of the first jokes I'd ever wrote. That was in the original set, but it's hack. Oh, it's hack.
Everyone has these.
Absolutely.
Everyone has these jokes like this. You can't get away from them.
You've got to get them out your system.
You do, exactly. You got to, it's like all the kind of moves you make, maybe even with wrestling as well, or any sort of skill. You're going to have some terrible attempts. I'm sure that, we're going to compare ourselves to Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo. I'm sure there was some horrendous sculptures he made at the beginning, kind of it's David. Is it really? Look at the state of that fucking thing. I'm like, I've broken his penis off again. I just can't seem to get the penis right. He must have made some horrendous penises at this time, isn't it? It was like, it was like, oh, that was way too big. Oh, no one's ever going to believe this. Come on, it's slightly exaggerated. Come on there, So it's like, but it must as you go, like you make some terrible mistakes, and that's where it starts, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And you start to get more self-aware, and hopefully, the arrogance and the validation doesn't go to your head, and you start to separate that from what the art of
absolutely. Well, as you know, most of my material's clean. 90%, 100% of my material's clean. There's usually a hacky edge to it in regards to, I might slander certain social or groups, and I need to get out of that habit. Most of my material's clean. For that to happen, it's exactly the same with the writing process. You've got to get the swears, you've got to get the sexual innuendos, you've got to get the smut out first on paper, and then once all of that's on paper, it's like, now I can start writing. But you have to, because the childish kid in us all wants to write the sexual innuendo because it's funny. So we've got to write the fart jokes, the toilet humour, and we have to get all of that out of our system. And then it's sit down and we can start writing jokes.
You do the Christian circuit as well, don't you?
Yeah. I've been doing that now for the best part of 18 months. And
did you cynically go, right, I'm going to write all clean jokes? Or did you start from the very beginning writing clean jokes?
No, because I am a Christian. I started initially just doing, I had a couple, like I said, a couple of hacky, terrible jokes. But my aim was always to keep it clean, so no swearing, no sexual references. Unfortunately, I veered off probably about 12 months in because comedians, when you start running out of material and you start writing new stuff and you start second guessing and then you start writing, you start pandering to audiences because you start writing stuff that you think the audience wants to hear. And you're not true to yourself. And I started veering off, and I wrote this 5-minute bit about Love Honey, and I love, even now I love the bit, but I refuse to do it. The ethics of the actual bit I stand by, because I don't believe that type of commercial should be on the TV. Yeah, we are in a liberal society, but if you're into that kind of thing, people know exactly where to buy it. They don't need a TV commercial. And it just seems as if we've gone too far liberal in regards to, all these things are all readily available to us. Just because they're readily available to us doesn't mean to say that they have to ram these things down our throat. Sex toys.
Good gag,
yeah. And that's how the bit started. Unfortunately, I just couldn't resist dropping that in. It's really me subverting the ideology of having a mail order company of sex toys being on the TV, and it offends me. Even now, it offends me. You know, I've got teenage kids. Do I want my teenage kids? They don't need it in their face. If they choose to go down that direction, I mean, you know, we're all sexual beings. We're all sexual beings, and we all need to be sexually satisfied. But at 15 years old, do they need to see that? Yeah, exactly. There's already enough of it on
They'll
the
get
TV,
enough of it.
So.
I mean, look, when they hit college or whatever it is, there'll be plenty of that. This is why, you know, England won the war, right? So you've seen TV in Germany, right? It is everywhere, isn't it? It's like morning breakfast. Oh, just okay. Then what is that? Oh,
beautiful thing I love about Holland, because one of the most liberal countries in the world, sex is just a thing. I mean, it is just a thing, right? And their rates of teenage pregnancy, their rates of rape, child abuse, all things of that nature that are really horrible against humanity. And the Netherlands have got one of the lowest rates. They don't have teenage pregnancies. They don't have unwanted pregnancies because it's a natural thing that they're brought up with from such a young age, because it's in their face. They don't have the issues that we do. I know. I can't help it. I don't do innuendos. Unfortunately, you can't help it when you're around winter.
That wasn't you. That was my fault.
I know. It's all good.
Because, it's like now, right? Like, because everything is PC, it's subverting every kind of racism or sort of discontent that people have with other races or whatever thing they just hate. You can't hate that person, or you can't hate that thing about some sort of culture. Pushes underground. I'm not saying, because everyone's a little bit prejudiced in any way. You know, it's like so it sends it underground, so it comes up somewhere else. It's like trying to control some sort of anger. If you push it down somewhere, it'll come up somewhere else. You don't know where it's going to come up.
And this is what my show's about. The show tip tonight, because of how I've a lot of the jokes that I've wrote, they're edgy, but you know, it's all tongue in cheek, and it's, you know, one joke is all right with one audience. However, another joke, oh no, you can't go there. And it's interesting how our prejudices lie. I believe that we're all in a stage of white guilt in all areas of life. It's, you know, we've got this white guilt complex going on that, you know, everybody needs protecting. It might not be these people, because we don't care about these people, but these people, they need protecting. You can't say jokes about that. Oh, but you can do a joke about this. And all of a sudden then it's, we're pigeonholing. That's what my show's about. It's the whole contrast of what is right, what is wrong. How often do we try our best to be as liberal as possible, but we'll slip up in a certain area, because you're exactly right. It's which hole is the gopher going to come out of next? You know, and you're trying to block all the holes, but the more you try and push and coax, another hole pops up. And I think you're absolutely right. I think you bang on the button.
Everyone's trying to give voice to those people. But no, those people can shut the fuck up. We don't want to hear about that. They've had enough voice. You shut up. You get back in your box. Oh, but we want a voice too. But isn't everyone equal? No, you've had your fucking time. This person has to talk now. Can we all talk together? No, we can't all talk together.
No, because you're ginger.
Yeah, it's so fucking stupid. It's so stupid.
Exactly.
It's like we're all human beings, you know. And it's even saying that, people will probably be like, oh, well, this person totally doesn't understand it. No, I said, I'm seeing it at both sides. I'm not like bitter about the situation. I'm just like, well, that's how people.
But it's amazing how bitter other people are, though. Oh, you can't do that joke. Well, I'll reword it. Yeah, but we all know that you still mean this. So okay, I won't do that joke. Shall I swear in my act? Oh, yeah, that's fine. Where is your moral compass? Oh, okay, you can talk about... No. This is exactly what my whole show's about. Is, you know, what's acceptable in today's standards? What... If we're gonna be completely politically correct, we can't talk about anything. Maybe I'm pushing that too far, right? Maybe that's just my experience and my stand going, oh, that's me being petty, but... Let's be honest.
Yeah. It's like, do you like oranges? I don't like oranges. I'm sorry, we can't.
What have you got against oranges?
My parents, my dad was run over by an orange truck or something, or you know, dad was allergic to oranges. He died choking on a piece of. You know, it's just so because you're right. I mean, okay, well, that is a massive exaggeration for whatever it is. It does become ridiculous if you take it everything out of context. Everything's a trigger. Every single thing. It's like, we know the old thing. It's like, oh, talk about herpes. Well, one of my best dad died of herpes. Well, whatever it is.
Can't
talk about herpes. Oh, I have herpes. Oh, do you? Okay, well, we should shut up then. Fucking hell, this is it. It's so silly, isn't it? And then someone I remember, I did a really shit joke ages ago about herpes, and someone in the crowd went, "Ugh!" I was like, "What the fuck? I was thinking, do you have herpes? Why what? Don't be hate. They didn't want to get herpes. It's just one of these things. Sometimes it's transmitted when you're born. So you're doing your show, right? You did your gigs, but why did you start doing comedy?
After wrestling, I went to seminary school to do preaching, to do lay preaching.
Right.
After you've taken 15 years of being battered round the ring, there's an innuendo. That was deliberate.
I know that.
No, when your rings took about. I mean, when you've been battered around the ring for 15 years, and you've spent so much time on the road, I started missing it. I've let my body go. I'm sure you can vouch to your listeners if you don't know me. And I was thinking, man, if I want to get back into wrestling, it's going to take me at least a year and a half, 2 years to get back into physical shape. So I'm not a danger to myself. I'm not a danger to anyone in the ring. But because I think there's nothing worse than seeing somebody that don't put the effort in, not just in the ring, but getting themselves fit. There's nothing worse than seeing an unfit wrestler. I used to be one of those unfit wrestlers to a point of, it was like, I don't want to put... it's like comedy. There's the performance, there's the stage work, but you've also got to do the writing work.
But you got a shit MC. You've got a terrible MC,
but they've got to go hand in hand.
Yeah.
No, right. Nothing to do with an MC.
Sorry.
Right, they go hand in hand. You've got to do one and the other.
Sure,
and it's the same with wrestling. You've got to do the gym work, and you've also got to do the performance work. They go hand in hand. You can have the best wrestling moves in the world, but if you don't look like a wrestler, no one's going to believe them. And it's exactly the same. You could have the greatest gags in the world, but if you've got no performance skills, if you've got all performance skills and no jokes, then you're just a theatrical performer, aren't you?
Yeah, that's it.
So,
an actor.
Exactly. So they both go hand in hand. I was like, it's going to take 2 years to get back to a decent level of fitness for me to just not be a liability to anyone. My mum had bought me tickets for John Bishop. I love John Bishop, even now. Fantastic comic. And so me and my wife went to see John Bishop at the NIA in Birmingham. And I was like, after about an hour, I was like, I want to do this. This is my midlife crisis. This is what I can do. I don't have to be body slammed. I don't have to take pile drivers. Yeah, I don't have to go through the surreal and wonderful world of wrestling and the gym anymore. I can do this. And then the more you start putting comedy under a microscope, and you start realising that the industries are so very similar. You've got promoters, you've got booking agents, you've got to go to this place and that place, and you've got little independent comedy clubs, you've got big comedy clubs, you've got, world tours, and it's like the whole industry is identical, without the spandex. Unless, of course, you prefer to wear spandex, which, that's obviously optional.
There's that masked comedian as well, isn't there, who just wears the mask and just goes... like topless and just has the Mexican wrestling mask on. That's it.
I don't know this, but I need to check this out.
Yeah, check it out on the internet. He does this.
Fantastic.
He does the Moose, like 90 seconds when he just spends all his 90 seconds gyrating at Hills Diego. It's hilarious. It's really good. He's like, I'm going to get through. What? And he's like just gyrating for her in front of her and giving it loads.
Good,
sorry.
Good.
Yeah, so sorry.
The world needs more of that, if I'm honest.
So you were saying that, you did it because of
it was
physical shape. You had to. You thought, right, this is what I want to do. This is my midlife crisis.
Yeah. That's absolutely right. I had my midlife crisis early, and I was like, I really need to do something. I need a release, and comedy become my release. And it was like, do I have anything important to say? No, probably not. But I do like making people laugh. I do like the travelling. I like going here, there and everywhere. I like to get away. I like to get out of my own mind. Not like that. But, you know, as in take a break from your own mind. Take a break from the reality and the monotony of life and just spend your time in good company of comedians that will take you on an interesting journey if you let them. So it was like, I wonder if I can do this. I wonder if there's enough... If I've got enough stories or bits and pieces to be able to kind of construct together in a comedic art form or make some of my wrestling stories interesting, humorous. And the answer to the wrestling is no. It's took me the best part of 4 years. I think what had happened is I took wrestling so seriously that even now I find it difficult to find the funny in it. So... what I'm starting to learn is you've got to take the things and you need to make them funny. You need to put a slant on it. You need to come at it from a comedic angle. You need to tackle it from a comedic angle. And that's what I'm learning to do now.
I totally get that. But it's like the wrestling thing. So you're like, you had to give up punishing your body. And now you're like, no, fuck that. I'm going to punish my mind for the next few years.
Yeah, there you
go.
go.
That's what needs to take a hammering now. Have you got like siblings and stuff as well?
I've got... I don't want to ruin too much of the book, but I want to give little bits away. Yeah, I've got an older sister, and I've got 2 younger brothers and a younger sister.
Did they do the same thing with, like, did they do wrestling?
No.
They're not into that at all? No performance or anything like that?
My older sister, she done little bits of sort of like theatrical dance and that kind of stuff, but no, she went and joined the army at the age of... I think she was 18, 19. She's been in the army ever since. She's 5 years older than me, so she's, 44? 44, there you go. She's 44 and still in. Godspeed to her, you know what I mean?
Your old man, is he still around her?
Yeah, my old man's younger than my mum.
Yeah.
Yeah. 21 years younger.
Wow.
I didn't say that. I did say that. I said that quite loud as well. My dad evidently was quite old looking for his age and was going to the same folk. My mum used to be a folk singer.
Right.
So that's where the performing bit comes from. My mum used to be a folk singer. My dad was attending the folk club. Met me mum. My mum thought he was older. They got together. My dad swallowed my mum's birth control pills with a bottle of sour mash whiskey.
Right.
And I was conceived. There you go. That's my dad's
origin
legacy.
Story. That's your origin story, isn't it?
That's it, yeah.
They tried to stay safe.
Wolverine, was adamantium, was it? The metal?
Right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Me. I was born on birth control pills and Southern Comfort.
Yeah, look. That's an interesting mix. That's a cocktail and a half, isn't it? Wow. Do you play guitar as well?
I do a little bit. Yeah, my mum sort of taught me. I was about 13 when I was like, I want to do this. And so my mum taught me 3 chords.
Oh, yeah.
And then I got into Metallica when I was 15 and learnt one more chord to play up and down on 2 different strings. And that was all I needed to get me by. So, yeah, I played a little bit. I was in a punk band when I was 18.
What's the name of it?
It was called Sovereign. After the cigarettes. What a name for a punk band. It was great. It was a lot of fun.
We talk about you were a preacher. You were trained to be a
preacher. I am not fully qualified.
Right.
However, I am very, very experienced pulpit minister.
Wow.
Yeah, have been for just as long as my comedy, so about 3.5 years.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And do you do it regularly?
Probably once a month, twice a month, depending on the road.
That's an hour, right? An hour of...
Yeah.
You got to know your stuff up there, right? You got to really...
I sneak in lots of my material. In fact, I get some material from it every so often.
Amazing.
So.
That's great. There's a lot of vicars on the circuit as well.
The rule of 3. I mean, vicars love the rule of 3. I mean, seriously. And, your intonations and rhythm, your delivery rhythms, exactly the same. And I think they do complement each other. In fact, there was another podcast I'd listened to once where they were saying they were listening to a preacher on the radio, and it was like, they're using the same rhythms as a comedian. It's exactly the same. I actually thought about that and went, they're absolutely right. Illustrate.
Best
Get
story
to
for
the
the
point.
end. A big
Nice
emotional
twist.
bit. Yeah.
There you go.
What,
Make them cry.
What's the twist? What's Dad Dad doesn't die in the end of this one. The son dies in this, so it's the opposite of a Fringe show.
Yeah, that's
son dies.
Exactly.
But technically, they're the same person. So
Technically
maybe
the
Dad
same
does
person,
die.
and he does come back to live.
He does, yeah. So it's a happy end.
Comes back to life,
Yeah.
and starts teaching them and preparing them for the day of Pentecost. I mean, that is a Fringe show.
You know, but when you're, I was when I was going to, like, when I went to Catholic school and stuff, and when like did they do the same thing when you're up, down, kneeling, standing?
No,
kneeling?
and this is
so annoying.
When I come back home, because I didn't grow up as a Christian at all. I didn't really start understanding Christianity until I went to America, because it's big business over there. When I come back, I started looking for a church for me, and I went to Catholic Mass, and I saw how regimented they are, and I was like, no, I can't dig. I can't dig religion on that aspect, you know. And I was like, nah, can't do that. Because you saw people that were constantly going, and they were already getting prepped and primed in place, sit, kneel, stand, before the father and the reverend had already said anything. And I was like, you guys have been trained. You guys are like circus animals, and I wish you could see it from where I'm sitting right now. I hope I haven't offended anybody, but
got one knee up. I always had one knee up. One, I was
just,
like
just to make sure.
I was doing the T-bow. Half in prayer.
That's it.
Just in case, you can't,
I'm thinking.
I'm thinking, why am I here? That's what it is, isn't it? So you're continuing to test out and polish your show, right?
Yes.
Tip Tonight. And you're writing your book.
Yes.
And is the show Tip Tonight can be taken to the Fringe next year?
I'm hoping it's going to the Fringe this year. I've put
Okay.
my application in, and I'm just waiting, because I'm only looking to do 2 weeks this year rather than a full run.
Yeah.
And I know that the free Fringes are booking up in regards to full runs at the moment. So I'm hoping I'll get something out of it. If not, then I'm hoping that the world doesn't end and I get an opportunity to do it next year. But I really want to do it this year.
What's the biggest high of the last couple of years? Or I'll start with the biggest low first, because I like to finish with
Of course.
What's the biggest low?
Biggest low was, I'm one of these that don't really let depression get the better of me. You know Millikan's Law. You know Millikan's Law, don't you? You know, if a gig's gone bad by 11 o'clock, well, usually it's by 11 o'clock that night I've kind of got rid of it. It's when I have a good gig, I hold on to those, and that's becoming my biggest problem. But lowest points really hard for me to kind of put a finger on. I'm going to say lowest point of the last 2 years. That one's difficult. I'm guessing having to go home from Edinburgh early because of having an infection in my foot.
Well, what happened?
You was there. This was the first year. No, it wasn't your fault. I was walking around for way too many hours with wet socks. I hadn't looked after my feet, and ended up with an infection in my toe. I didn't deal with it. The infection started tracking up my leg. The third day I was in such a mess that I was with you. I was with Jay Islam, and Jay Islam's like, I think you need to go to the hospital.
Definitely.
I mean, to a point I couldn't walk because the top of my leg had swelled that much that it was.
I remember you sitting down in that basement room.
At the Jekyll and Hyde.
Oh man,
yeah. I was in a bad mess, and so I went to Edinburgh Royal Infirmary, and they were like, look, if we can't get this infection to stop tracking, then we're gonna have to do some procedures. And I was like, please don't take my toe. I want my toe. I like my toe. I like 5 toes. And just so happened my body responded to the mixture of antibiotics and this acidy stuff that's in this antibiotic to stop the... it was...
Edinburgh is serious sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah. That was because that was my first Edinburgh. That was eye-opening. And then the following year, I looked after myself a bit better, and So yeah, that's probably the low point, but it's kind of just outside the 2-year remit.
Right.
So yeah, so let's go 2.5 years. That was the lowest point.
That's good enough. I mean, like, you don't want to lose a limb. I mean,
No,
like,
no,
you know,
no.
or
Not
a
if-
digit
not
or
if you
whatever.
can help it.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, you know, that's a lot of walking goes on in Edinburgh. You want all your toes. So the biggest high.
Biggest high. There's two. Edinburgh 2015, working with Patrick Monaghan. That was so good. And very recently was doing rough works at the Glee New Material Night with Sarah Millican, which was just, it was such an experience, and it was awesome. I think that's the best. I was in total awe, and it was just so good. It was so nice. The Glee, if you've not played there, the studio room is one of the nicest rooms I've played in the world. You know, and that goes with some of the wrestling arenas that I've played. But yeah, I love that place, and I'm going to dine out on that for probably another 18 months.
Self-esteem popping at, like, you know, tracking up.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And okay, right now, where can we come see you in the next year? You're going to go Fringe. Are you doing any other festivals as well?
Yeah, I'm planning on doing Nottingham and Birmingham again this year. All my concentration at the moment is getting to work on this book. I've only just finished the first chapter. I've only been working on it for best part of 6 days. I'm sitting down with one of my old wrestling buddies. Me and him started together. We're sitting down on Friday so I can collaborate all the information for chapter 2. As soon as chapter 2's written, the next 9 chapters will pretty much write themselves, because it's still quite fresh. But it's the second chapter is the early days where I've started wrestling training, and there's little bits and pieces I'm not too sure about. So I really wanted to collaborate as much information, because it's the one that's more foggy and than all the others. It's a bit cloudy, should we say?
As in, like, okay, you see what you should put in and what you shouldn't put in, right? I get you. That's cool, man. That's great. So what's the name of that book again?
The proposed title
Right.
is Poison, an Infectious Adventure of a Professional Wrestler.
Right, cool.
I'm hoping that will be ready by Fringe
Excellent.
2018.
Have a little bit of merchandise on the
Yeah,
table.
that's the plan.
Great.
That's the plan.
That's great, man. Like, where can we find you? Like, what's your
Yeah, I've got a website, www.martinhuburn.com. That's HUBURN.com.
That's great. Well, I hope I see you at the Fringe this year, man.
Likewise.
Martin Huburn, thank you for coming on the Comedy Defect, man.
Winter, you've been ace, man.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man. It's been great. And that was Martin Huburn for episode 39. I hope you enjoyed that one, guys. Like it, share it, comment, tell your friends about it. Go find Martin on Facebook. Go follow him on Twitter. Go see him live. He's touring our show called Tip Tonight, and he's also writing his biography about being a professional wrestler called Poison, an Infectious Adventure. Go check that out too. You can follow us on Twitter. We're there at The Comedy Defect. You can follow me at Winter Phonander. Come see my live stand-up gig dates, which I'm previewing my Edinburgh show called Tolerance, and the dates for that will be on my website, which is winterphonander.com. Website is being upgraded by friend of the podcast, Danny Clives. He's on it. It's going to be amazing. Can't wait to see that. You can also see the jokes that I've gleaned from the Guinness Encyclopedia there on Twitter under the heading The Book Dad Read, and the handle for that is at Guinness Jokes. I'm on page 70, nearly hit the 100. Hey, I'm getting there, guys. You can also help us keep the lights on by supporting this podcast by going to Patreon, typing in The Comedy Defect Podcast. You can donate as little as £1 or as much as you think this podcast is worth. Because those of you that do donate, thank you very much, because you're paying for the people that can't. Thank you. Look, if you can't donate, guys, just share, like, retweet, comment about your favourite episode, because it tells people where we are and what we're doing. But that's it for now for the Comedy Defect Podcast. We'll see you next week with a very funny guy for episode 40, Mr. Thomas Rackham.